Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we are reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. From here, I have chosen chapter 13. It's always interestingly philosophical. The title of the chapter is Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. And from here, verse 21.
Finnish translation here if somebody wants.
Eli suomenkielinen käännös. So I don't have it on the board, I just read this through. Hetu prakriti uchate Purusa sukha dukhanam Bhoktritve hetu uchate Karyakarana kartritve Hetu prakriti uchate Purusa sukha dukhanam Bhoktritve hetu uchate. Translation and forward by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Purport. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure, but in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now, the sum total, body and the instrument senses, are offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desire and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause and of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put in the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the supersoul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1, as follows. Va suparna sayuja sakhaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul and in all circumstances is present as the super soul, Paramatma. The verse was Karyakana Kartitve Hetu Prakriti Ruchate Purusa Sukha Dukhanam Bhaktritve Hetu Ruchate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material cause and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Amagyatimansya Inamjana Samadaya Chatsuruminamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mugham Kadpativachalam Panumanate Grim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Prachyanam Paramanandamadvam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. So there's one legend in the history of Islam that the devotees used to go to different kinds of festivals, some rock festivals, to spread Krishna consciousness, to offer the opportunity to kind of people to make a connection with them in a Krishna conscious manner. And one story tells that in one of those concerts, one of our senior devotees, Kridu Prabhu, he saw Sting. Sting is a famous artist from the group called The Police. So he went to talk to him, but Sting was actually quite busy at that time, so they kind of, in a hurried way, Sting finally said to him that, okay, tell me your philosophy in one sentence. And Kridu Prabhu managed to say before Sting went off on his own way, he managed to say, we are spirits in the material world. And soon after, there was a song from the group called Police called Spirits in the Material World. So that's our position. We are spirit souls in the material world, but we identify ourselves with this body. And here it was explained how the material nature is giving us different kinds of facilities in our this particular life to identify ourselves into a different culture or different ways of life. Well, here was the kind of two extremes from the body of an animal to the body of a demigod, but this applies also to us human beings when we have taken birth in different particular countries, different particular traditions, cultural traditions. Even Finland has been growing to be a very multicultural country, and so there has been a demand for trying to build some kind of bridges. Otherwise, there might be some calamity. I mean, there's a saying: "One man's poison is another man's nectar." So there are different kinds of organizations. Like we have a forum of religions here in Finland. There's a forum of religions. We are actually part, like a member of this forum, and there are 7 different religions trying to cooperate together, educate each other on this particular culture where they belong to. We are going to hold an open door day for inside of this forum of religions, so that the other religions they can come here and hear something about our lifestyle, our philosophy, our values, spiritual values. And there are many other organizations. Like one time, I'm actually holding the phone for the temple. So one time just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from one ethic teacher in Alala State, like a elementary school. So those are students like 11, 12 years old. So the ethics teacher was calling me and said that she's going to hold a panel discussion between different religious representatives. So she didn't mention anything to me about the forum of religions. So actually, we didn't even talk about it. But this is going on. The teachers at school also they see this as an opportunity to take some uh, hold some discussions, take an opportunity for educating all the school children, which is a very good thing. I remember when I was in the past, my early days of being in Krishna consciousness, I was one of those who went out on the street to face people, and many times they were just a misunderstanding or maybe prejudice, not so much accepting this kind of exotic religion there. But these days, they have Finland being multicultural more and more. It has it has been like a demand to do this kind of how do you say opportunity for religious dialogues, ecumenia, kind of that we increase our understanding, acceptance, and education, different traditions. Um, as we are identifying ourselves with our bodies, when Srila Prabhupada started this movement, he was in the beginning he was giving quite long lectures about the very esoteric pastimes of Krishna's pastimes and everything related to Vaishnavism. So, but after some time, he recognized that there's actually more of an urge to educate the devotees because they are very young. So those long esoteric lectures turned out to be short lectures and maybe with the message that you are not that body. So we, in this body conception of life, we easily think that the objects outside of the body, they are bringing me pleasure. But if you think very closely, the feeling of pleasure, feeling of happiness from which we see in an object, that feeling of happiness itself is coming from inside the body. There is nothing that there is some energy from the outside body radiating into my consciousness, and I feel happy because of that. But the feeling itself is from the inside. And the wonder is that what is there inside of me that this object seemingly is launching this feeling of happiness inside of me. Because if we choose that object from outside the body, it is from the material world. And it appears, it has its appearance through material energy. And as we know, material energy is temporary, full of ignorance, and full of misery. So at one point, when we think that this material object is bringing me pleasure, it will also bring me some misery. Yesterday, I was wearing my favorite pants. They are like a cream color, not exactly white, but a little bit darker color. But nevertheless, they are very light colored. And then I was happily honoring prasadam, eating some sabji with paneer and some other vegetables there. But also it was in tomato sauce. It was more or less like a what is it called? Paneer butter masala, like a little bit some vegetables also in there. And unfortunately, clumsy as I am, I dropped some of this sabji on my pants. And how am I going to show myself with these pants in public? It's embarrassing. So these same bands, where as I'm getting pleasure out of them, wearing them, the same bands is giving me misery. So this is material energy. But how to get that happiness without that misery? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting Hare Krishna, we can get rid of this holy conception of life, thinking myself to be an enjoyer in this material world, or as many times Prabhupada says, like here in the purport, our problem is that we try to lord it over material nature. But the material nature is stronger. We may have some good karma from previous pious activities, but Mother Earth is still stronger. Actually, there's one section in Srimad Bhagavatam where Mother Earth is actually Mother Earth personified. She's actually laughing that these great kings, they think they are so powerful, but time and time again, these kings they die away one after another. They try to exploit me, but now after some time they will be dead. And it's like they are paying obeisances to Mother Earth finally. That they have been getting so much out of Mother Earth. Creating material pleasures only creates entanglement, and ultimately we end up in a difficult situation. Like I think that my pleasure is the most important thing, and everybody else is thinking the same. So that creates conflict. That's why we have one reason why we have so many wars going on here right now. Prabhupada was establishing a peace formula in Bhagavad Gita, and he was actually even speaking about it in one meeting with the United Nations. Bhaktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam yatva mam shantim princhati. A person who is full consciousness of me, Krishna says, and who knows that I am the ultimate beneficiary of all the sacrifices and all austerities, and that I am the supreme lord of all planets and all the demigods, and that I am the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Such a person attains peace from the hands of material miseries. So we need to accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord. We may have our desires, but at the same time we can understand that those desires create entanglement. Even Prabhupada was very cautious of the influence of material energy. it's kind of obvious. It's not so easy to think about the ultimate original spiritual pleasure all the time because we have been in this material world birth after birth for from time immemorial. So it has been like a um, life after life accustomed that okay, I'm seeking pleasure from the material energy. So so it's not so easy to think exactly like that. Even Prabhupada was cautious about this. There's a story that in the early days of ISKCON, especially in India, when ISKCON was introduced in Indian communities, so many people they wanted to invite the devotees, the Western devotees, especially to their house. And one time it happened in Bombay uh, that one very rich man was inviting Srila Prabhupada and his disciples into his house, and they accepted the invitation. Uh, the house was very palatial, like a big palace. The person was very rich. He had 7 cars, even 2 Mercedes-Benz cars, and one BMW, and then some other cars. So the devotees saw that the Prabhupada actually was praying that let me not have this material influence, that I won't fall into illusion that I would have to have this kind of living facility. And that's uh, actually interesting connection there that when Srila Prabhupada was born as a child, one astrologer came to make an astrological chart of Srila Prabhupada, and he saw that one of his points was that Srila Prabhupada will be the richest man in India. So we can imagine how much kind of a razor's edge Srila Prabhupada was walking on there. At the same time, he had his mission to spread the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message uh, from the order of his own guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who said to him that if you ever get money, print books. So Srila Prabhupada was careful how he was using the money. I mean, he was also a businessman, so before he took sannyas, so he knew how to handle money. But at the same time, he was very carefully praying that he wouldn't fall in such illusion that he would consider him as the enjoyer of that money. I mean, he had the clear vision that it belonged to Krishna. It was Krishna's energy. So he knew how to use it properly. And we have some other examples in this one. I have spent quite a lot of time in the past in London. I was staying in the Soho Temple ashram in Soho Street. We have one Radha Krishna temple there, and it is mainly maintained by one rich Indian family, Mr. Agarwal. And sometimes Mr. Agarwal is inviting the devotees from the temple to his house to have prasadam. He has arranged the cooking and all kinds of fruits and nice cooling drinks are there. And every time when there's a Jagannath Rath Yatra in London, that's usually quite a big scene. There are 3 big carts coming from Hyde Park to Trafalgar Square. How many of you have been experiencing London Rath Yatra? It's a quite big Rath Yatra. And in the Soho Street Temple, there are Jagannath Baladev Subhadra deities along with Sri Sri Radha Vandanishvara. So this Mr. Agarwal is arranging the delivery of Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra from the Soho Street Temple to the Hyde Park in a very grand way. He is having them delivered with a Rolls Royce. So all of them, each of them are delivered separately. So there's a Rolls Royce in the front of the temple going to the high court and having all of these deities one by one put in their own carts. So that's a very pleasant event for devotees to experience. So this verse also talks about sufferings. Living entity is the cause of various sufferings. So we have our karma, our past misdeeds, which we are experiencing now. And one part of our philosophy is that whatever we give to the material nature responds accordingly. So whatever we do here, the reaction will come in some way or another. Like Prabhupada many times spoke against eating of meat. We are vegetarians, so we try to feel compassion to all the living entities, also the animal kingdom. We can see from any animal if there's a danger towards anybody who has pets. If there's a danger towards that animal is scared. The animal tries to protect itself. So animals, they also don't want to suffer. And so if we are supporting mass slaughter here in the material world by eating meat products, then the mass slaughter will take turn towards us. We give mass slaughter to the material world, then material world is arranging mass slaughter to us, and that happens in the form of wars, pandemics, tsunamis, earthquakes, or whatever is mass killing people. And so, as we are living our life in the material world, in the material nature, so there's a connection. And we can here see from the purport also, where Srila Prabhupada explains about the different animals here. So, living entity can take birth in an animal kingdom also. So there's a connection, and we should be careful about this connection and try not to give too much problems to any living entity. Like there's a true story I heard from Rishikesh. One of my friend is living there, and she witnessed it with her own eyes that there was one cow who was living on the street, and the cow had a friend, a dog. And they would be seen together very many times. And one day it happened that the cow died. She left her body, and the villagers there, or the local people, they took action, and then they started to dig a hole in the ground, and the dog was watching on the side, and then they put the cow in the hole, and then they start putting earth on the top of the cow. So they buried the cow, and the dog was wondering what's going on. He couldn't understand that his friend is put under the ground, and he wouldn't be able to associate with him anymore. And after some time, the villagers saw how the dog went in the place where the cow was buried, and he tried to dig the earth away from the spot because he was missing his friend. So even animals, they have friendship relationship like this. But in the Western world, we have a dog as our pet, and we eat the cow. So this is not really um, very fair deal. Little bit injustice is there. Um, all right. So we need to constantly remind ourselves that we are not this material body. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara sarva bhutanam vritismirjuna tistati ramaya sarva bhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The super soul is situated in every body, which is like a machine for the individual jiva atma soul. If we think like this, analyze like this, that the body is not just like a vehicle in order for us to function in this material world, then we can try to have a little understanding how we are not the material body. Um, and we have some examples, great examples of personalities who are not on the bodily platform, like we had just recently. Lord Narasimhadeva's appearance day, his great devotee Prahlad Maharaj was totally out of bodily conception of life. He didn't seem to care less what was happening to his body, and in this way, his body couldn't be demolished. Also, I mean, his demoniac father was torturing him in so many ways, having him pierced by spears, having him thrown off the cliffs, feeding him with poison, burning in the fire. But Prahlad Maharaj's body was totally untouched. Well, we may not be on that platform. Uh, um, but we can try to attain at least somewhat of that. Like a materialist, they are definitely in a bodily conception of life, and whatever happens to the body, if some disaster happens, their life is ruined. But we who try to advance in spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, uh, we understand that we are born empty-handed, we are leaving this world empty-handed, and we seemingly have our body as our property. So we try to keep it nicely. It's not nice uh, when you start to feel the influence of old age. Like eyesight is a little bit going. You are losing some functions of the body gradually, and ultimately you're going to have to give it up. So try to get rid of body, the conception of life, at least before the time of death. It's very much recommended. To the degree we identify with the body, to that degree we experience suffering. So it is also said that death for a materialist is like a cat is catching a mouse in her teeth. But the death for a spiritualist is like a cat, mother cat, taking her kitten, and shifting it from one place to another. This is a very good example to describe the difference between materialist and spiritualist. So we try to attain this kind of platform. So further on, Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Lord Narasimhadev when Hiranyakashipu is dead. One of the things he is saying that he's not afraid of material existence because we can take a lesson from Prahlad Maharaj. Whatever he's doing in the material world, he's only absorbed in thoughts of Krishna's or Vishnu's glories and activities. But Prahlad Maharaj says that my only concern is for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and, and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I'm simply concerned with love with them. Maya Sukhaya. It's the end of the verse. Maya Sukhaya Param Udvahato Mudhan. So Maya Sukhaya means that somebody is hankering for temporary happiness in this material world, and they take the false burden, haram. They take false burden of responsibility, uh, because that is simply whatever position we are in the material world. That is simply temporary, and such person are trying to make grand arrangement with Vahata. They are uplifting, making elaborate arrangements uh, for temporary things. So Prahlad Maharaj's mood here is indicating our mood, our missionary mood here in the Krishna consciousness movement. We are trying to deliver this ultimately suffering conditioned soul from material entanglement and try to bring them on the platform of Krishna consciousness so that they can have like original, feel original spiritual bliss, original ananda. Sometimes when we have a good kirtan in some places, and kirtaniya when he's singing or reciting the prayers, they might say, "Aaj ki ananda ki." So our process is chanting, dancing, and feasting, having fun in a very pure way, uplifting at the same time ourselves on a spiritual platform, and enjoy spiritually in Krishna consciousness, and go back home, back to God. Hare Krishna. And then we can end with that. The arati is starting soon, so the arati train being carried in the back. So if there's any quick question, I can answer.
I have a question. If you could elaborate, I heard Prabhupada discussion once that he was telling that as long as cows are being slaughtered, there will be no peace in the world. So if you could elaborate this.
As long as there are cows being slaughtered in this world, there will be no peace in the world. Yeah, I already described about animal slaughter in connection with the calamities of the material world, wars, pandemics, and so on, tsunamis. But especially cows, it is said that anybody in Hindu or Indian culture, if they have to eat meat, they are recommended to eat some lower animal, but not a cow. Well, there are different things said that, for example, a person who kills a cow must take as many births as a cow being slaughtered as the cow has hairs on the body. And all the devas, they reside in the different parts of the cow. And cow is very dear to Lord Krishna. So these things are there. And the law of karma, what goes around comes around. Some artist made one picture of a cow being slaughtered. There was a butcher with his axe held way up high, and the thing was that the cow had a human head. and the butcher had a cow head. So this indicates how the roles may change. If we are doing that. Actually, the last movie that I saw in the movie theater before I moved in the temple in the mid-90s, that was a little Buddha. And it started with that story where one priest was trying to offer a goat in a fire sacrifice. And he was holding his
Dagger.
dagger, saber, and the goat began to laugh. And the Brahmana was wondering, why are you laughing? And he was surprised. So the goat began to speak. Uh, I have been in this goat body for so long. Now I'm getting relieved because you are killing me. So I don't need to take this curse anymore. So then the goat began to cry. And now the Brahmana was wondering, he was just laughing, now he's crying, what's going on? And the goat replied, because 500 years ago, I was a Brahmana and I killed a goat in fire sacrifice. That's why I got this goat body. So then the Brahmana came into senses and he gave up that slaughter and paid obeisances to the goat.
Actually, he said 500 lives ago. I've seen movies many times.
Okay.
I remember it by heart.
Okay.
But now this ghost was not released.
Yes, well, he could have.
With more time.
I mean, the story doesn't tell this, but since he was able to speak, probably he was able to gather some spiritual knowledge also, or hear some spiritual things, and so he could have utilized that at the time perfectly. All right, I think we need to end here. Arti?
I have one question, just a short question.
Sano to Altarille?
If in our job, even though we are Krishna Bhaktas, we have to process meat and our employer requires it, is it a bad thing if we cannot avoid it?
Well, Prabhupada was recommending to choose such kind of jobs which doesn't include these kind of things. I'm not sure if I'm really able to answer that because it is also said that same reaction as the meat eater or slaughterer will get is also those who are delivering the meat and selling the meat.
Yes.
So it's better to try to avoid as much as possible.
But if you cannot always avoid,
Then give your money to spreading Krishna consciousness.
To avoid it, and Krishna will arrange a new job for you. Do your best, Krishna will do the rest. Rather.
Yes, that was a good answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhagavad Gita as it is.